904. No. Where are we here? Page 902. Okay, so we're talking about yesterday. If you guys remember, they're talking about you can't move in over here. Make what do you call it? Is that good? Are you? And I mean, stay over. Don't if you could hear whatever. I just get nervous because my wallet is in my briefcase and it's in close proximity. Okay. So it says like this. Perek Lav. Yesterday we were talking about the concept of neders and the husband can veto, and we got to the point where it says in Pasuk Rashi brings down Pasuk Vav. It's not clear by the Meforshim why Rashi says on Pasuk Vav, but at the end of the day, let's say a woman makes a vow that she's not going to drink wine, and the husband says veto. So the husband has veto power over the wife's vows. That's the halacha. A husband can veto it. Rav Hirsch explains because the wife has to be in a certain upbeat, healthy frame of mind in order to run the house, because she runs the house. So he's got that. The Torah gives him veto power. So now, what happens if a wife made a vow not to drink wine? The husband was in the other room, and husband said veto, and she didn't hear it, and and then she, not knowing that he's vetoed the vow, she decides one day, listen, I know I made a vow not to drink wine, but I'm going to drink wine anyway because I feel like drinking wine. And there, the Torah says, in Pasuk Yud Gimel, pick it up on 902, 10 lines from the top, 9 lines of Vim Hafer Yafer Osam Isha B'Yom Shemo Kol Matzos Eselin Darei Lisar Nafsho Lo Yokum. So husband vetoes it, so it doesn't. The vow doesn't count. Isha haferam, her husband is vetoed it. VaHashem yislach la, Hashem should forgive her. And Rashi at Pasuk Vav says that you see that even though technically she didn't do anything wrong, because it was already vetoed by the husband, technically she didn't do anything wrong, but she still needs forgiveness. And Rashi points out that if that's what you need forgiveness, even when you didn't do anything wrong, imagine the forgiveness we need when we did do something wrong. That's what Rashi says. Okay, so the Gemara says that Rabbi Akiva, whenever he would read this pasuk, Rabbi Akiva would cry. Whenever Rabbi Akiva came to this pasuk, Hashem yislach la, that a person needs forgiveness for something that they intended to do and they didn't even do it, Rabbi Akiva would cry. Now, that begs two questions. Number one, why did Rabbi Akiva cry? Number two, why did Rabbi Akiva cry? He wasn't the first one who read that pasuk. He wasn't the only one. All the Tanaim and all the Amoraim, everybody always read that pasuk. Everybody learned. Everybody did heard the laning on Shabbos. Why specifically was Rabbi Akiva the one who was crying when this happened? That's what the Meforshim asked. So the answer is based on an interesting. I don't know. The source might be the Arizal. I don't know the sources, but the 10 brothers of Yosef, they sold Yosef, and then they were not punished at the time. When did they get their punishment? When did the brothers get their punishment? So what we read on Tisha B'Av, we read on Yom Kippur about the Asora Haruge Malchus, the 10 martyrs. The 10 martyrs are killed. If we read the Dirge on Yom Kippur, it says that it was a conversation between the Roman emperor and these 10 martyrs. By the way, they did not live at the same time, these 10. These 10 were in different eras. It was for poetic license. It was compiled as if there was a conversation between the Roman emperor and all 10 of them at the same time. Those 10 Tanoim did not live in the same generation. But so they couldn't have been together at the same time. But it was put together as a dirge in order to tug at our heartstrings on Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah and Tisha B'Av. They were okay. What was the conversation? The Roman emperor said to them, well, in the Torah it says if you kidnap somebody and sell him, you deserve to die. And the brothers never got punished, and therefore there have been no 10 sages together since then, 10 people at your level. Therefore, you are going to be accountable for what the Shvatim did to Yosef. Okay. So according to the Arizal, I think it's the Arizal, he says that they were a reincarnation. The 10 were a reincarnation of the brothers, and Rabbi Akiva specifically was a reincarnation of Shimon, which is not a coincidence, because you see that 24,000 died from the tribe of Shimon, and Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 disciples who died during the Sfiras HaOmer period. So my neck is starting to hurt, by the way. But the Rabbi Akiva, the price you pay. So thanks, guys. So Rabbi Akiva is a reincarnation of Shimon. Now, in the sale of Yosef, who was the catalyst of the sale? The catalyst of the sale, Reuben wasn't there. It was Shimon and Levi who were the catalyst of the sale. That means Shimon is the one most responsible for the sale of Yosef. Now, when the brothers come to Mitzrayim and they meet Yosef in Mitzrayim, what do they say to Yosef? Oi, they're embarrassed. Yosef reveals himself, which, by the way, is always awkward when a brother who you've sold reveals himself that he's actually the king. Hi, fellas, what's new? What you been doing? So there's a certain moment over there of awkwardness. At that point, when Yosef reveals himself, and the brothers they're just as consumed with shame as could possibly be. Yosef says to them, "You thought it was for a bad reason, but Hashem made it good. So you got nothing to be upset about." So Rabbi Akiva, at some level of his neshama, Rabbi Akiva, whether consciously or subconsciously, Rabbi Akiva realized that from this pasuk, where you need an atonement for something that you tried to do wrong and you didn't even do it wrong properly. Some people can't even do averas properly. You tried to do the avera, and you still need an atonement. So if I'm a reincarnation of Shimon, there's going to be some sort of punishment because our intent was a negative intent and it came out positive. The fact that it came out positive doesn't help. The fact that it came out positive, we see from here, you're right, you tried to kidnap and sell me into slavery. I ended up as a king. Don't you hate when that happens? I ended up as a king. That's fine. On the other hand, there's going to be accountability, and that's why it's specifically Rabbi Akiva, when he saw this pasuk, that he cried, because at some level Rabbi Akiva realized that there's going to be some sort of accountability for him, and it turns out that his death is the most torturous death of the Asar Harugei Malchus. Okay. Take a look at pasuk 16. In pasuk 16 it says, now what happens if the husband annuls the vow? V'im hafer, 4 lines of the vow. V'im hafer yofer osam acharei shamo v'nasa es avona. Now here, the husband, we mentioned yesterday that when a husband is going to veto it, he's got to veto it by nightfall of the day that he hears it. Now what if he vetoes it, but it wasn't a valid veto? It wasn't a valid veto. Every time I think of veto, I think of the Godfather. But every time he vetoes it, every time the husband vetoes it, he what do you call it? He has to veto it by nightfall. Now what if he vetoes it and it's not a valid veto, but she thinks it is a valid veto? You follow? So let's say he vetoed it too late. Says Rashi, take a look at Rashi, Pasuk Tes Zayin, it's the left column, 3 lines from the top. Acharei shamo, he vetoed it after he heard it. Says Rashi, acharei sheshama v'kiyem, he heard her make the vow, and he said it's valid. At that point, it's too late. You can no longer veto it. She'amar efshibo, he said, yeah, I could live with that. V'chazar v'hofer lo b'yom boba afilu bo b'yom. Then he went and vetoed it even on that day. He caught it on time, but it was too late, even though it was on time, because he already confirmed it. Says Rashi, v'nosa es avona, he bears the sin. Hu nichnas tachteha, he takes her place. He gets nailed with the breaking of the vow. Lamadnu mikan shehagorein takolo lechaveru hu nichnas tachtev lechol onshim. If you cause a stumbling block, if you are the cause of somebody else's avera, then you take his place in the avera. That means if a person causes somebody else to sin, that person bears the responsibility from the sin. What do we see from that? And what we mentioned yesterday, that midah tova meruba mimidas puranos, if you cause somebody to do a mitzvah, so then you get credited with his mitzvah. If you cause somebody to do a mitzvah, then you now share in the credit of the mitzvah, however it is that you caused it. There are countless stories of people who were inspired. I think I mentioned, I don't remember if we mentioned a few weeks ago, Wrigley Field in Chicago. Yeah. Wrigley Field, you're from Chicago? Oh yeah, there you are. I didn't see you. Yes, Wrigley Field in Chicago, where it's a mitzvah to attend, by the way, a Cub game. So there was a group of, in the Chicago Community Kollel, a guy walked in, very wearing blue jeans and a T-shirt. He walked into the Chicago Community College, and he said that, I know that this is a Jewish study place. I'd like to learn. I'd like to study. So the Rosh Kollel, it's not a Kiruv Kollel, but the Rosh Kollel saw there's a guy, coming in there, a guy with. He said to him, what brings you here? He said, I'm a vendor at Wrigley Field, and there are these religious guys who are also vendors. That was the job. Yeshiva guys used to do that. I vended a couple of times at Wrigley Field. They were guys that did it regularly. And he said there are these Yeshiva guys who vended it, these religious guys, and every day after the sixth inning, a group of them stops, and they get together and they pray. They daven mincha. He said, now if you know anything about vending, when you're vending, you're hustling. And every minute you're making money. I remember when I vended, I was really excited. I was a substitute. I was really excited. Good, I'm going to go vend, and I'm going to watch the ball game too. This is the best job you could possibly get, right? I want to tell you something. I had almost zero interest in the ball game. Once in a while you stop, bases loaded, 2 outs, you stop to see something that's happening. Nobody's buying anything anyway. But in spite of my interest in sports, which is somewhere between feverish and out of control, that was at the time. It's only gotten worse. But when you're making money, all of a sudden they pay. You're selling cokes. You're peddling cokes, and people are buying. People are giving you money. So this guy said, if they could stop in the middle of a game where they're vendors, and they could take 10 or 15 minutes to go pray, then there's got to be something to it. I want to find out what it is. He said, not only that, one of them I saw that a guy gave change, and a guy gave him, instead of giving him $1, he gave him a $100 bill. And this religious guy turned around and said to him, oh, by the way, you gave me $100, this is yours. Now, the guys who are vending, I met some of the vendors. They're not somebody who would take as a son-in-law, right? These are not, these are not the cutting edge of class in society. And he said, if that's what a religious guy does, I want to find out more and become religious. Now those vendors now have a share in whatever it is he accomplishes in his growth as a what do you call it? Somebody told me the other day. Somebody told me actually who it was. In Europe, there was a Rav in Europe. What happened was, it was in Israel. A guy walked into like a makola. You know what a makola is? What they call it, a grocery store. A guy walked into a grocery store here in Israel, and he saw the grocer, who seemed to be just a very, nice, sweet, average person. And he had 2 sons who were very serious yeshiva guys working in the grocery store, as a vacation or something. So the Rav was very impressed, and he said to the guy, I want to ask you a question. What have you done that you merited to have 2 sons like this? And most men in an honest moment would say, well, it had nothing to do with me, it had to do with my wife. But none of us want to admit that. But he said, what have you done to merit 2 sons like this? He said, nothing I could think of. It just, regular. The guy said, no. Yeah, I want you to think, well, you must have done something that you merited 2 sons. I'll tell you the truth. The only thing I could think of is back in Europe, years ago, I got contact. Somebody told me he had 2 boys that he wanted to send to the Slobodka Yeshiva. And he needed somebody to finance the trip and to support them a while in the yeshiva. I had some extra money at the time, so I paid for their trip. They went to yeshiva. I heard they did well in yeshiva. And maybe because I helped 2 boys go to yeshiva, so then Hashem gave me 2 sons like that. So he said to him, can I ask you a question? Do you remember the name of those boys you sent off to yeshiva? He says, oh, it's a long time ago. I don't remember it. He says, think. He goes, oh, yeah, well, I remember. One of them, his name was Yaakov Kamenetsky. And the other one's name was Aaron Cutler. And I heard they did well in yeshiva. He said, yeah, they did pretty well in yeshiva. As a matter of fact, probably all the Torah in America is because of them. Yeah, so they did pretty well. Now this guy gets, not only Hashem knows exactly how the percentages work, but if you affect somebody negatively, that's what the Torah is telling you, affect somebody negatively, you set them up for the fall. So then you take their place. You're responsible. If you help somebody to do a mitzvah, and by the way, there are countless times, it's something even as insignificant. Let's say you're davening in shul in the morning, and you drop money in the pushkin. Another guy says, oh right, I didn't give tzedakah today. And he gives, now you have shares in his mitzvah. You have shares in his mitzvah. How it works exactly, again, Hashem has Hashem decides the percentages. Okay. By the way, the Panovich Rav, you've heard of the Panovich Rav, the Panovich Yeshiva in Bnei. The Panovich Rav was, he built the Panovich Yeshiva at a time when he bought that mountain the hill that the Panovich Yeshiva on, and he builds this massive yeshiva at the time. They said to him, you're dreaming. What are you expecting today? Panovich today has 5,000, 6,000. I don't even know how many Talmidim they have over there. At the time, that didn't look like it was going in that direction. So the Panovich Rav, when he was a Rav in Europe, guess which town he was in? A Rav of. Which one? You're on a roll, baby. You're on a roll. He was the Rav of Panovich. That's why it's called the Panovich Rav. So he was the Rav of the town, and he had a yeshiva. And he got to the point where where he felt, I'm doing for the community, and I'd like to put a little time into my own learning. But he didn't make any decisions. He never made a move without consulting with the Chafetz Chaim. So he got on a train, went to Radin to come speak to the Chafetz Chaim. So he goes to the Chafetz Chaim. Chafetz Chaim had a yeshiva in Radin. And when he took, it's about a 5-6 hour train ride. When he get to Radin, so as soon as he came in, the Chafetz Chaim, before he could say anything, the Chafetz Chaim, as was his habit, he said to the Panovich Rav, how much have you learned today? So the Panovich Rav said, listen, I've been in transit, I learned, I had my Gemara with me, and I managed to learn two blot, maybe 2.5 blot Gemara. The Chafetz Chaim said, I learned 200 blot today. I'm not sure I was thinking, he's good, but he ain't that good. He said, I learned 200 blot today. He said, okay. The Chafetz Chaim said, come here. He had a window in his room overlooking the base medrash of his yeshiva. And he said, see, there are 200 boys in that yeshiva. Each one of them learned 1 blot today. I've learned 200 blot because it's my yeshiva. And the Chafetz Chaim, that means I've made it possible. You have shares. What are your shares? Only Hashem knows what the shares are, exactly how it works. But when you influence somebody, you should know whenever you influence. I always tell the women, because the women, you're raising a family. When your son puts on tefillin at 13 years old, you, the mother, now have shares in that. Because you're the one who instilled that. You instilled that. When your husband goes to minyan, you lady, you have shares in that. Because you're the one, the Gemara says, Ishto shel adam midaso al raglav. A wife puts her husband on his feet. That's got a literal meaning too. Like at about 7 o'clock in the morning, he's on his feet. Yes, Captain, and off you go. Okay. Take a look at Perek Lamed Aleph, Perek Lamed Aleph, bottom of the page. Vayomer Hashem, completely different subject now. Vayomer Hashem al Moshe Lemor, Nikom Nikmas Bnei Yisrael Me'esa Midyanim. Take the vengeance for the Bnei Yisrael from the Midianites who caused the Jewish men to stumble. Achar Te'osef El Amecha. And then you're going to die. Now, vengeance, normally the Torah says you're not allowed to take a revenge. What's wrong with revenge? There's even an expression, sweet revenge. Nothing feels better than revenge. What's wrong with taking revenge? Before anything, what's wrong with taking revenge? What's that? It's
just a feeling, there's no actual productivity from it.
There's no productivity to it, that's true, but it's a great feeling. It is a great feeling. When, revenge, there's nothing quite like it. Not that
Two wrongs make a right.
Two wrongs don't make a right, but okay, it's true. Like he's saying. So he wronged you. So what did you gain? What did you gain? So you took revenge. The guy messed you over, so you messed him back. What did you gain? The answer is that the Sefer HaChinuch says that the problem with revenge is that if somebody did something to me and I want to get him back, that means I am considering he's the cause of the trouble. And he's not the cause of the trouble. The cause of the trouble, the Rebbeinu Shalom decided that this person should go through suffering. He's only an agent. If it wouldn't have been him, it would have been somebody else. The Rebbeinu Shalom has many different agents. If it wouldn't have been him, it would have been somebody else. It would have been something else. A person who then has it in for that person, you've now pushed the Rebbeinu Shalom out of the picture. Because now you're putting all your energy into this guy himself. He's the reason that I'm suffering. He's not the reason. He's simply the agent. He will be accountable because who have asked you to volunteer to be the agent? That's why Paro gets punished. Paro gets punished because there was a decree the Jewish people have to go and they have to suffer in a foreign land. But who told Paro to be the volunteer to do it? Well, who told you that you're the one to carry out God's plan? Yet the Jewish, if it would have been Paro, it would have been somebody else. If it wouldn't have been you, it would have been somebody else. The person who takes revenge, that means you're ascribing the entire situation to that person. I told you I once did something to my younger brother. I don't remember what it was. I think I flicked his ear while he was eating. His ear needed flicking. So I flicked his ear good and hard, and he chased me around the house. I am a coward through and through. And he chased me, and he had me cornered, and he had his fist up in the air. And he was going to hit, and he could hit hard, my younger brother. And I decided to appeal to his religious sensitivity. So I said to him, you can't hit me. He said, why not? I said, it's revenge. So he looked at me for a second and said, it's not revenge. I'm starting from new, right? And he proceeded to start and finish from new. But it's revenge by any other word. It's revenge, no matter what you call it, it's revenge. The problem with, now, here, Hashem says you're going to take revenge of the Bnei Yisrael. This is what's called a holy revenge. Gedol, the Gemara says, revenge is a great thing when it's done for the sake of Hashem. Hashem's giving the command to take revenge against the Midianites. And then, Moshe Rabbeinu, you're going to die. Now, you'll notice again, the Torah's choice of expression, when it talks about somebody dying, Te'asef el hamechel, which literally translates to, then you will be gathered to your people. Now, which people is he going to be? When a person's put in a grave, hopefully there are no other people in there. Gathered to your people. You're not gathered to your people. A person is put in a grave, there are no people in there. And we see from here that when a person dies, he's gathered to his people, means the souls, the neshamas of the people in Shemayim, where his neshama is going to go, he's gathered to his people. So it has nothing to do with the body. Now, why is it that this command is being given at this point? What is the command over here that Moshe Rabbeinu is given the command? It goes through Moshe Rabbeinu, even though he's going to be sending the men to the battlefront. Why does the command come through Moshe Rabbeinu? So first of all, there is an opinion that Moshe, is it snowing in Yerushalayim in July? I see the white stuff falling from heaven over there. It was before. Maybe it's, there it is. There it is. See, you learn Torah, manna falls from heaven. Let's go get it, guys. I have no idea what that is, unless there's a pillow fight upstairs on the third floor. What do you call it? Why does the command come to Moshe Rabbeinu? Why does the command come through Moshe Rabbeinu? He doesn't even go to war. What's in this command, and why are they going to fight Midian right now? And what's the connection to Moshe Rabbeinu's death? So the Mefarshim say, back in the incident with Pinchas, when Pinchas kills Zimri and Cosby, last week's Parashat, Pinchas kills them. 2 weeks ago he killed them. Last week he gets the reward. 2 weeks ago he kills them. That was your double header parsha in America. You guys had a double header, right? You had Chukas Balak, right? Yeah. So I remember when I moved to Israel. So we always had double parsha. Everyone thought there's a double parsha, and we never had a Chukas Balak here. We never had that, and I couldn't figure out I know growing up that once in a while there was a Chukas Balak, till I realized it's only on one of these years that there's a Chukas Balak are connected, but that's only in Chutz La'aretz. In Israel, we never do Chukas Balak together. In Chutz La'aretz, they had to do it in order to catch up to us, because they were one parsha behind us, because of Yontif. What was Yontif for them? Shuas, right? So that was Yontif for us. We had a regular Shabbos laning. So they fell one behind us. That's what they catch up. And I never could get a chap. Where is that? Why? How come we never do it in Israel? Now, here, when Pinchas goes to Moshe Rabbeinu, so he comes to Moshe Rabbeinu, he says to Moshe Rabbeinu, didn't you teach us, remember we spoke about this? Didn't you teach us that a Jewish man who's consorting with a non-Jewish woman, kanoim pogimbo, that you could take vigilante action if your heart is burning with kanos for Hashem? Didn't you teach us that? And what did Moshe Rabbeinu say to Pinchas? Karaina de igrasa ilave parvanka. The one who delivers the letter, the one who reads the letter, let him carry out the instructions. Okay, so we explained over there, why didn't Moshe do it? Why did Moshe leave it for Pinchas? Moshe knew the halacha, he taught them the halacha. Why didn't Moshe take up the spear and kill Zimri himself? Why did he leave it for Pinchas? Moshe Rabbeinu, he was good with the spear. He killed Og Melech HaBashan with an axe. Moshe Rabbeinu, he killed the Egyptian. Moshe Rabbeinu would have had no hesitation. He could have taken up the spear and go, why didn't Moshe kill him? So what we explain, I think the Alshich says, that Moshe Rabbeinu felt, what did Zimri say when he came to Moshe Rabbeinu? He came to Moshe Rabbeinu and said, is this woman permissible or not? And if you tell me she's not permissible, this Midianite, who allowed you to marry a Midianite woman? Moshe Rabbeinu at that point felt that if he goes and kills Zimri, people will see it because there was a person, hey, you insulted my wife. You insulted my wife. A personal insult. Isn't it interesting how men are? What would your reaction be Anyone, what would you actually, if you saw a guy in the street start yelling at your wife, what would you do? Or a guy starts getting, maybe even physical, what would you do if the guy's starting up with your wife, he starts yelling at your wife? Every husband at that moment, there's, what's it called, chivalry. No, hey, that's my wife you're yelling at. Only I'm allowed to yell at her. Right? Isn't that interesting? No one else in the world's allowed to yell at my wife, but I could yell anything I want at any time. It's interesting. We're interesting human beings, aren't we? Right? Such consistency. So hey, Moshe Rabbeinu, you just insulted my wife. If Moshe Rabbeinu says I'm disqualified, because if I now take action, people may interpret it as a personal as opposed to kanoim pogimbo, which has to be 100%. That's what the Alshich says. Other Meforshim say Moshe is taken to task for it. Where were you, Moshe? What's going on? What happened? Why are you sitting? Why did you pick up a spear? Now Moshe has to rectify it with the battle against Midian. And he's got to give the command, tell them to go to the army to fight Midian. Now this is your way of rectifying when there was a Midianite woman who should have been killed and you didn't take action. Number one. Number two, there's no coincidence over here that it's right before Moshe's death. Because what two Averas did they trip up the Jewish people, the Jewish men in? One was idol worship, and one was immorality. Out of the two out of the three, murder is not, Jews don't murder. Jews aren't murderers. Once in a while we yell at each other, especially in shul, right? Or at our wives. The Jews don't kill each other. Jews aren't violent people. I tell you, there was an incident here, and my brother told me, there were two cab drivers in Israel. They had some sort of, they banged into each other. They got out and started yelling at each other. So the way these things usually in Israel is they yell at each other, and then somebody invites somebody else for Shabbos lunch. That's how it ends in Israel. So these two cab drivers were yelling at each other, and one of them then pulled a gun. One cab driver pulled a gun on the other guy. At that point, the other guy got so angry, came out and they started punching. Why? He says, we both know you're not going to shoot me. But we both know that. You've insulted me by pulling out a gun. You've insulted my intelligence as if I'm going to be scared of you pulling out a gun. Can you imagine that happening in New York? Happening in New York, and a guy pulls a gun, the other guy's insulted. What, you think that I think that you're going to shoot me? How dare you insult me? At that point, he got upset. So what do you go? Here, out of the three, murder is not an issue. Immorality and murder, that's the Achilles heels. Moshe Rabbeinu specifically, this command is given right before the death of Moshe Rabbeinu, that the Jewish people should have reinforced in them, this is the Meforshim say, that reinforced in them these two fundamentals of Judaism, morality and idol worship. You're going out and killing the Midianites who were the ones who caused you to stumble in that area. And therefore, at this point, that's why the command is given. Okay. Now, take a look at Pasuk Gimel. Vaydaber Moshe el ha'am leimor, hechaltzu meitchem anashim latzava, v'yu ha'midyan loseis nikmas Hashem b'midyan. So, produce men that are going to go to the tzava, to the army, that they won't get arrested for being draft dodgers, and they'll be against Midian to give. That was a joke, by the way. That was a joke. Arrested. And they will now take Hashem's vengeance against Midian. Now, the Medrash says that these men had to be tzaddikim. Tzaddikim went to war for the Jewish people, and it says that even somebody who put on. There are two versions of the matter. One is somebody who spoke between his hand tefillin and his head tefillin. You're not allowed to speak between your hand tefillin and your head tefillin. And there's another medrash that says somebody put the tefillin on in the opposite order. You put your head tefillin on before your arm tefillin. Sometimes it happens to people simply because they're tired in the morning. You get to shul, you're exhausted. Next thing you know, you're wrapping it around 7 times around your. Oh, well, 1 second. That I understand. Here it says even a slight avera, like putting on your head tefillin before your hand tefillin, you're disqualified for going. Or if you spoke between your head tefillin, your hand tefillin and your head tefillin. Why is that example used? The example of putting on your head tefillin before your hand tefillin. if that's the example, he could have said something else. He accidentally did borer on Shabbos. There are plenty of examples that could have used. Why is he using the example putting on tefillin out of order? And the answer to anytime there's a question of why, the question is what's the alternative, right? If a person put their tefillin on out of order, why did they put their tefillin on out of order? What happened that you put your tefillin out of order? The answer is that if you go to war and you're putting on, you're going to war, you put your tefillin on out of order. Why did you put them on out of order? Chances are you're a little bit rattled. When would a person ever put their tefillin on out of order? Something must have happened that your mind isn't where it's supposed to be. That's the only way that could happen. If a person is going to war and he's nervous, and that nervousness causes him to get rattled, and he's putting on his head tefillin or he's talking between, he blurted something out, that means that you're not at the right level of bitachon. You're not at the right level of bitachon to go to war for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Person goes to war for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, your trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu has got to be 100%, not 99%. And we see that in this war they go, and you make a calculation, gentlemen, 12,000 men go to war, according to some 13,000. It's not clear because it says 1,000 from each Shevet and from Shevet Levi. Now, how many Shvatim are there among the Jewish people? 12, but 13. If you count Ephraim and Menashe, then you got to knock Levi out. If they count as two, then you got to knock Yosef out. So it fluctuates between 12 and 13. That's very interesting. Where else is there a 12-13 fluctuation? Where else is there a 12-13 fluctuation?
Months.
The months of the year. Sometimes it's 12 months. There's a leap year. It's 13 years. And we know that each month corresponds to one of the tribes. Each month corresponds. Isn't that interesting? There are 12 months, sometimes 13 months. There are 12 Shvatim, sometimes 13 Shvatim. So you see this 12, 13, and it's also by the age of a boy and a girl. A girl is an adult at 12, a boy is an adult at 13. There's this fluctuation. By the way, I heard this from Rabbi Tatz many years ago. There's a statement in the Zohar, I've never seen a statement inside. It says, a little girl is a woman from the earliest age. And a man is a little boy always. Now, isn't that interesting? Isn't it? And they don't even know me. Right? And isn't that interesting? We had, when they were doing construction on this base medrash, so my shear room is in the other building. When they were doing construction on this base medrash, it was right outside my window. So we're in the middle of a Gemara shear. I'd be looking out the window, seeing these cranes, they're digging and everything else. And I'm supposed to be thinking about Tosfos, and all I'm thinking of, I'd like to get in one of those cranes for a few minutes. I played with trucks when I was a little boy. I want to play with the bigger one when I'm a big boy. So that you have this 12-13 fluctuation. You always have this 12-13 fluctuation. Now, there are 12,000, let's say, 12,000 men are going to go. It says from each tribe 1,000 men. Do you know how many Midianites there were? If you make a calculation, the girls under 3 years old, who they end up keeping alive, were 32,000. That's just the girls under 3 years old. Now, make a calculation. That means there were 32,000 little boys. Make a calculation how many adults there were. If the calculation is these 12,000 men went to war against several million, and not one man was lost. Not one man was lost at war. So, if you're going to war for the Ribono Shalom, you're going to do the mitzvah, there has to be a level of bitachon where you're not messing up your tefillin, even your tefillin, number one. Number two, one of the Hasidic masters says, if you take a look at this, Heichaltzu me'itchem, it's 2 lines from the top. How does he translate the Art Scroll? Arm men from among yourself. Now, the truth is that Heichaltzu means to go out. Hechaltzu me'itchem, go out of yourselves. And this is a command to all of us. That we have to not be focused on ourselves. Let's say latzava, to go to the army. Which army? The army of Hashem. We are Hashem's army. The Jewish people are Hashem's army. What do you call it? There was once a rabbinic convention. And Rabbi Simcha Wasserman, Rabbi Chanan Wasserman's son, he lived here in Eretz Yisrael. So Simcha Wasserman was at this rabbinic convention, and a Reform rabbi came up to him, and he said to him, how come there's so many types of Jews? How come there's so many types of Ashkenaz, Sfarad, Hasidim, Misnagdim, Litvak? why aren't we all just one? I mean, first states like, why should we? We should all be reformed. So Rabbi Wasserman, who was a very sharp man, he said to him, the Jews are Hashem, we're an army. We're Hashem's army. And in every army, you have different branches of the army. You have the Marines, you have the Tank Corps, you have the Air Force, you have the Navy, you have the ground, intelligence. Yeah, we're Hashem's army. There are different branches of the army. Ashkenazim, Sephardim, Hasidim. Within the Hasidim, there are who knows how many groups. Within the Ashkenazim, within the Sephardim, there are groups. We're all Hashem's army. There are different branches of the army. So the rabbi looks at me, smiles, he goes, and which branch of the army are the reform? So I watched him without missing a beat. He said, every army has deserters. Right? Yeah. So you're also part of the army, right? So here it says, we're Hashem's army. We have to get out of ourselves, not be focused on ourselves, to be true members of Hashem's army. One more point. In Pasuk Dalet, it says like this: 1,000 for each tribe. You're going to send. The Medrash says there were 3 sets of people that went to the army. 1,000 went to fight, 1,000 watched the equipment, and 1,000 davened. Where did they daven? They davened right at the battlefront. Right at the battle. They went off to show. They went off to battle. Jews daven everywhere. Jews daven on planes. Jews daven on airports. Jews daven when they go on a tiyul. I used to call El Al the flying shtibel. Right, you got a minyan every. There's always a minyan. Jews are always excited. There's a minyan. Go to the airport. There's always a minyan. You got to before the flight. I was once on Highway. I don't know if you know Highway 6. I was coming back from Tzfas with my son. We had to go be Menachem Oval. So we're driving back. It was towards the evening. We're planning on getting back to Yerushalayim to daven mincha, and there was an accident on Highway 6. We were standstill for an hour. For an hour we were standing still, we couldn't move. And it's getting late. So my son and I had no choice. So we walked off to the side of the road to daven. Because we're going to daven b'yichis, we had no choice. We were going to miss mincha. As we're walking off to the side of the road to daven, there's a Hasidic guy comes over and says, is there going to be a minyan here? It's like driving up to the Catskills. Isn't there a spot where you drive, where you pull off? They have a minyan place. There's going to be a minyan. Sure, Highway 6 on the side when there's a traffic jam. Sure, a minyan. I'm sorry, I don't daven here every day. This is just a one-off. This was an unscheduled davening session over here. Okay, 12,000, 1,000 guys at the battlefront. Question: why are they davening at the battlefront? Could you imagine there's swords and clubs and bows and arrows, and next thing you know, everybody's like, hold it. Amen, Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach. These guys are 1,000 guys are davening. So there are 2 explanations here. Explanation number 1 is for the benefit of the daveners. When you daven and you see a battle going on, you see it produces something in the davening. Don't they say the band plays to the dancers? Something like that. You see what's happening over there. You're davening to Rebbe Shem. Wow, it's the difference between davening for somebody who's not well and davening when you go and you visit him and you see how sick he is. When you see a person is sick, Rahman al-Islam, so then it brings out a different type of davening as opposed to hearing about it. You go in there and say, boy, this guy's not in great shape over here, got to daven. That's in one direction. The other direction is for the benefit of the warriors. That like Moshe Rabbeinu was up on the mountain when they found a Malek with his hands up in the air. It's for the benefit of the warriors. That the warriors in war, you could get easily carried away with kochi va'otzam yadi. I'm the one doing it. I'm stabbing. I'm shooting. I'm the one who's killing. Therefore, they have to have the daveners in full view at the battlefront, that the people fighting the war shouldn't make the mistake and think that they're the ones who are winning the war, that they should understand that it's the Rebbe Shem who's winning the war for them. That's one of the reasons, by the way, why we make 100 brachas a day. It's a mitzvah. You make 100 brachas a day. I know two people that I've met in my life who anytime you say to the guy, where are you holding? 79, 93, 84. They know how many brachas they're holding by the course of the day. Why do we make 100 brachas? Why do we daven 3 times a day? Davening never comes at a good time. Do you ever notice that? In the morning, you're tired. In the morning, you're tired. At night, you're hungry. And at mincha, you're tired and hungry, right? Like right now, right? So why is that? We have to stop what we're doing in the middle of the day. Stop everything we do. Stop. and check in with Rebbe Hashem, especially Mincha. Right in the middle of your business day, you stop, check in with Rebbe Hashem. Let's make contact that whatever deals I've cut today, whatever properties I've flipped, whatever I've sold, whatever I've succeeded, that I stop and check in with the Rebbe Hashem. 100 brachas a day is the same thing. 100 brachas a day is the same thing. I was on my wife's from Columbus, Ohio. Not my fault, that's where she's from. And I'm from Chicago, Ir HaKodesh. And Chicago is a Jewish community. Columbus is very, kind of goy America. It's lower middle class, upper lower class. They kind of talk like this, a little bit of a twang. And my brother-in-law was working as an accountant in a department store, Schottenstein's department store. And so I had to go speak to him. So I walk into the Schottenstein's, and a young lady behind the counter who was obviously not Jewish, I said to her, "Excuse me, do you know where Mr. Cohn is?" She says to me, "He's in Minyan." I said, he's where? She couldn't have said what I thought she said. He's where? He's in Minyan. So I said to her, where is this here Minyan? She says, in the storage area, second office on the right. And clueless, absolutely clueless. I open up the door. There are 12 Jews there from the various area got together to daven mincha in the middle of the day. If this girl thinks Minyan, she thinks Minyan's the name of an amusement park. She has no idea what Minyan. My brother-in-law left a message. When he calls, tell him I'm in Minyan. She has no idea what Minyan is. Same thing with 100 brachas a day. We're constantly checking in. The expression Baruch Atah Hashem, which does not mean blessed art thou, O Lord, it's pathetically translated in most Sidurim, because Hashem doesn't need our blessing. Baruch Atah Hashem is a declaration. You are the source of all bracha. You are the source of all bracha. Imagine your relationship. Imagine saying to your wife 100 times a day, you are the source of my joy. Thank you for supper. You are the source of my joy. Thank you for doing the towels. You are the source of my joy. Thank you for not taking the credit card. Imagine saying that to your wife 100 times a day. By the end of the day, you have a different relationship. We're saying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you are the source of this of the blessing. Thank you for the apple. You are the source of the blessings. Thank you for helping me to relieve myself. If we do it 100 times a day, we're constantly connected. The more we're connected, the more the relationship grows. All right, stop and continue tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem.